the Miami Dolphins, who had a slow start coming into the season, especially after a crushing end of last season, heading into this year, looking to turn things around. I know no longer it's fist magic. It was going to be all about Tua Tagovailoa, and I'm not even sure if I pronounced that right, and I know probably butchering it, but Tua, everybody knows about Tua, but a funny thing happened on the way to him being a starter. Jacoby Brissett took over, and they went on a little bit of a tailspin. And a little bit of a tailspin is a bit of an understatement, but I know someone here who is diehard and ready to talk about Miami Dolphins football as they have slowly climbed back in the race in the AFC and a very crowded field. And here to talk about the Dolphins is longtime Dolphins fan Brandon Berns. Of course, you guys have seen him a lot on previous live streams. And of course, I'm glad to have you here to talk about everything, Brandon.
Thanks for having me again, Earl.
No problem. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk about the Dolphins and seeing really what they can do as they go into the grind going for AFC playoff spot.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see how they've really turned it around since they're 1-7. As you said, they kind of swan dive there, and I never thought we'd actually be talking about the Dolphins and the actual playoffs here coming up. So
going into this, normally I ask everybody this: how did you become a Dolphins fan? What drew you to them?
Well, I can tell you, Earl, I've been a Dolphins fan all my life. So my dad's actually a Dolphins fan. I can credit him from, his time when he was born in the late 60s. When the Dolphins first started there in 66, that was kind of his time to, really dive into the team. And then obviously, when he was growing up, they had the undefeated season there in 72. Still the only team to ever do that from start to finish, including all the playoffs. And then, I think back-to-back Super Bowls there with Zonka and Kick, and then that really got ingrained into me there. And then I have obviously had the Marino years, coming out of the late 80s into the early 90s. So I saw some, great football there as I was growing up, and really just been on some hard times here in the last about 20 years.
Yeah, understandable. I know really ever since we could say the either Joe Philbin era or Tony Sperano era. I mean, I even think about just really that tail end of Dave Wanstead era after he succeeded Jimmy Johnson. It's been lean years ever since.
Truthfully, I blame Nick Saban and Cam Cameron on the lean years starting and kind of never adjusted from there.
Definitely, I can see that. Going into your history as a Dolphins fan, what is your most memorable Dolphins moment?
I think for me, the games that I remember really growing up, the Marino fake spike game versus the Jets in 94. So, that would have been, for me, 9-10 years old, kind of growing up in that regard. And then obviously, everybody remembers the Dolphins versus the Cowboys there on Thanksgiving. I remember being at my grandmother's and, seeing that game in the snow, and, Stojakovic misses the kick, but, Leon Lett, kicks it halfway down the field, and we get another shot to, win it there. So, unfortunately, I haven't, ever saw the team ever really get over that hump. We always kind of came up short, in the 90s there versus like the Bills and, Jim Kelly always kind of ran into them. And then, as Marino kind of got into his later years, we never, got over that hump because we always kept running into those strong Jacksonville teams or the Elway teams. But, more recently it's been, really lean. But I think, the last year has been really encouraging to see, hopefully, that they're building to something new. So.
Expectations for the year. I know, as we mentioned, the Dolphins had a lot of faith in their hands, and they weren't able to really solidify that and lock it down. Going into it, new year under Flores, another year. What were the expectations? No longer was there Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the quarterback. Tua had the path open to him. What did you feel like they could do with a clean slate for Tua?
I think with the amount of draft capital they absolutely had, I think going into this year, I thought the sky was kind of the limit. I knew, Buffalo was going to be a challenge this year. And, I think it was going to be those two teams really battling it out for the East. But, I think really as close as they got to making the playoffs last year, I was kind of hoping, a wild card would definitely be in play for us this year. And then really, sneaking up and surprising some teams, because I think that the formula that Flores had with the defense and special teams, and then really, getting Tua out there, and, that second year, I thought, he was going to take that next progression step and, really be a contender here. So
the crazy thing is 10-6, any other conference, it'd probably have been great. But then you run into a conference where you have a 13-3 team, a 14-2 team. That's already two spots. Then a 12-4 team. And then you have 4 11-5 teams fighting for that spot, and that left the Dolphins on the outside in. Had they had the 7th team as they have this year, they would have made the playoffs.
Yep, and it's always that kind of 1 year too late type scenario, but I think they are progressing up though. As we've seen, last couple of weeks with that, the team, it's, I think realistically, if you look back at their schedule even this year, we had a rough patch there of, losing, 7 out of 8, but I think, 3 of those games, we're within a field goal of realistically being an 8-9 win team right now. So that game versus Jacksonville, Atlanta, and even the Raiders game early in the year really hurt us in the record perspective.
Was there a point in the season that you were feeling optimistic about the Dolphins' playoff chances? Was it the Baltimore win? Was it anything else in particular?
Oh, absolutely, the Baltimore win. That, if you look back at especially the 2 games against Buffalo this year, that team looked completely different, especially the defense. I mean, we couldn't stop the run if our, life depended on it, as we looked at those couple games. And I think, the defense, I don't know what Flores, what magic he's putting in there, but the last, I would say about 4 weeks, the defense is doing, and that was kind of the model for success last year, is the defense was putting the offense in great situations with a lot of turnovers, which that's what you're seeing this same last couple of weeks as well.
Was there a particular moment where you thought, these guys, they are all hype and they bought into it and they are not succeeding?
I mean, I was scared when Buffalo ran us out of the building in week 2, but I think, my low point was really probably when we lost to Jacksonville in London. I think, for me, that was kind of the low point to say, okay, if we can't beat Jacksonville, then we might be, really looking to, at that top 10 pick, which of course we had traded to Philly in order to trade back up to get Waddle. So, for that, we were kind of, looking at that pick to say, hey, that's kind of a waste of draft capital space.
Looking at the rest of the schedule, it's going to get tougher when you look at the final few weeks. They have a bye week, and then it's Dolphins Jets. That could be a win depending on how they come out of the bye. But then you get the tougher parts. You get the Saints, then you have the Titans, and then you end in New England, which we always know with there's always a Dolphins-Patriots game where normally the Dolphins end up shocking the Patriots. And I know that has to be interesting when you look at that the schedule.
Yeah, as you said, the Jets game is definitely a winnable game, I think. The Saints, I think they're Jekyll and Hyde right now, depending on what team shows up. Not having Kamara back and, really with them losing a quarterback in Winston, Hill and Simeon haven't really necessarily played to their capabilities. And I think it really comes down to those last 2 weeks for the Dolphins. I know Tannehill, seen enough of Tannehill in Miami to know both the good and the bad that comes with him. So hopefully, they don't have Henry back by that time. But, if we have a Tannehill, without, his wide receivers, I think that's a very, very winnable game. And then, like you said, when you get Miami and New England together, there's always something screwy that happens with those games. And, no matter who the quarterback is. And I think, with that game, potentially being for a playoff spot for both, you could see anything populate in that game.
Looking at the playoffs, if the Dolphins were to make the postseason, who do you feel that Miami matches up the best with?
I think just the familiarity behind them. Obviously, New England, as we saw with Buffalo twice already this year, they've kind of ran us out of the building. So that would be the matchup I wouldn't want to, be around. And, obviously, we've played Baltimore. We'll play Tennessee. So, I think having a game plan versus the Ravens and potentially Tennessee here moving forward, could be half decent matchups for us as well.
And you mentioned that one of the teams that you wouldn't want to see in the playoffs, but as a Dolphins fan, is Buffalo the team that you guys don't want to see at all?
I think, they have our number right now, just looking back at the last couple of years. Allen's played really, really well against us, especially, we can't really cover Diggs and or Beasley, in the last 4 matchups. So that'd be kind of, the one that I would avoid. And then especially then too, I think our secondary would match up great potentially against the Chiefs, but you never want to get in that situation to where you're having to go against Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill as well. So
looking at it, we talked about Tua as well. When Jacoby Brissett was brought in to start several games, did you think this is another quarterback bust with Tua?
I mean, injury history wise, it didn't seem like he could keep himself on the field, but I think with Brissett, it was kind of that insurance policy, which, really didn't pan out, as much as we had with Fitzpatrick. But, I think as they've progressed with Tua, you're starting to see flashes and starting to see glimpses of where, he's really starting to hit on a lot of his passes, and they're starting to really incorporate those things he was good at Alabama. You're starting to see now in the offense.
Now that the honeymoon's over and Flores, after that, well, I wouldn't say a collapse last year. I mean, 10-6 is good. 10-6 would have got you in any other year. 10-6 would probably get you in this year. But do you feel like there's any pressure on Flores as head coach? And I know that, believe me, they've went through the dregs of coaches the past several years. Do you personally feel like the hot seat starts to warm up if they don't make the playoffs this year?
I think if they would have completely bottomed out, absolutely. I think he earned himself another year to really see what's going on with this team, because I think when you look top to bottom with our team this year, the injury bug has gotten us, especially on the offensive side. We signed Fuller, we have Gesicki, we have Parker. They all haven't been on the field together once. So I think as you look at the potential of that offense, I think the line's really young as well. So I think as the defense has kind of been carrying us the last second half of the season. But I think that offense has that potential to really get there as well.
Going to the Super Bowl prediction, who do you have coming out of the AFC? Who do you have coming out of the NFC? What's the final score and who wins?
As much as I don't want to say it, I think we're going to get a rematch of last year. I think it's going to be Chiefs, and I think it's going to be Tampa Bay and arch nemesis Tom Brady. Score-wise, I think, unfortunately, I think Tommy might get another one, 24-21, because I don't think that the Chiefs line can stand up. I think if we're looking at the matchups that I'd want to see, obviously I don't want to see Tampa get into it again. So I'd like to see maybe a first-time team, whether it be the Bengals or the Chargers, go in and win one, and maybe the Rams. I think an all LA Bowl being in LA this year would be pretty cool, because I think Herbert and Stafford could definitely sling it around, and that'd be a fun Super Bowl to watch.
It always seems like Tom Brady wins with a field goal most of the times. As we start to wrap this up, do you have any shout outs you want to give to anyone? And what are ways people can reach out to you on social media to talk Dolphins football?
Social media wise, I'm on Twitter at SRURocky50. So I can be found right on Twitter as well. And then, Instagram, I'm also same handle. So, I think, also in Facebook, find me by my first and last name. And then from that perspective, shout outs to, the entire crew that follow baseball. I know they're on the Eastern Shore, a couple of the folks. Big shout out to all the fantasy football crews of all the leagues that I'm playing in as well, as we approach this last week as we're going into the playoffs. So, for a couple of leagues still in the playoff hunt. For the other ones, wish everybody well.